Assalamu alaikum dear students. Today we are going to discuss double cosets. Double cosets are important because in proving Sillow's second theorem, Sillow's third theorem, and some of the consequences of Sillow's theorem, we need to use double cosets. So in this lecture we are going to define double cosets. We will try to simplify the idea with the aid of some examples, and we will discuss some related theorems. So let's have the definition. Double cosets. Let G be a group and H, K be two subgroup of G. Then the set H A K is equal to H A K, where H belong to H, K belong to K, for an arbitrary element A belong to G. Okay, what is the definition? The definition is you take G as a group and HK be two its subgroups. H is a subgroup of G and K is a subgroup of G as well. We define the set HAK. HAK, here we are fixing the element A. Of course, the elements of this set must be of the type HAK, because we are fixing the element A and H from this capital H and K from this capital K. So that's why we are writing H belong to capital H and K belong to K. So corresponding to a fixed element, A belong to G, for an arbitrary element A belong to G, this set, the set is called a double coset of H and K determined in G by A. It's called a double coset of H and K in G by A belong to G. Okay, just like the previous idea, you know that AH, what you call AH, this was the left coset of H in G by A. We used to symbolize the set of all left cosets of H in G by A as AH. Similarly, you know, in our previous classes we have given the idea of right coset, that was HA, and you know that we used to symbolize the idea of right cosets of H in G by A. Similarly, we are going to define the idea of double cosets. Double cosets H and K, the double coset H and K. So this is the set, and is called a double coset of H and K in G by A belong to G. Or some people like to write this is also termed as, this is also termed as HAK is the double coset double coset modulo hk, we instead of writing double coset of h and k, you can write hak is the double coset modulo hk by a belong to G. Of course, you are fixing the element A. This is the idea. If you think about this, if you see here AK you know is in fact the idea of left coset of K in G by A. Similarly, if you see like this, HA is in fact the idea of right coset of H in G by A. That's why this idea has been generated with the help of these two ideas. I mean to say that from the set of left cosets and from the set of right cosets, we can have the idea of double coset HAK. Of course, the elements must be of the type HAK. So now question is whether all the things that that are true in simple idea of cosets, like you know that set of all cosets always defines a partition of G, mean to say that collection of all left or right coset is a partition of G. Similarly, any two left or right cosets are either identical or disjoint. Okay, so there is a one-one correspondence between any two left cosets, or there is a one-one correspondence between any two right cosets of H in G. So there are some other results that we have discussed in group 3.1. So now the idea is to revisit those results in terms of double cosets as well. So whether those results are true or not, we will see with the aid of an example. So let's try to understand the idea of double coset with the help of some examples. So now I'm going to simplify the idea by means of examples. Okay, let G is equal to D4. You know D4 is AB, such that A4 is equal to B square, AB square is equal to E. Right? Take any two subgroups of D4, the dihedral group of order 8. Let H is equal to EA square and K is equal to EB. So you can find all double cosets modulo HK determined by elements of G. So first one is HEK. You know this is simply HK. The idea is, I think I should write here HK, because A is the identity element, so you can absorb anywhere in H or in K. So this is in fact E is the fixed element, so start from here. E, then this E, then this one E, similarly, and E A square, then this E, and then this E. Okay, you are taking one element from H, this is the fixed element, and one element from K, like E, 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 then A square E, B, right? A square E, this is your B. Oh, we have written both the elements. Then you take first is E, then again write A square, you have another element, that is E, then E, then B. Okay, so the fourth element is A square E E. These are the possible elements. So look at this. What is this? This is E. This is A square B. This one is B. This one is A square. So these are the four elements. Okay, you vary the elements of H and K by fixing this element. Let's try again. If you have H, A, K. Okay, A is the fixed element. Start from here. E, A, take E, H, elements of H with all elements of K. And remember, A is the fixed element. We will not change A. So, like E, E, A, E, then A square, A, E. The first element is completed, all combination with the first element of K. Then again start with the second element. E, A, B, then A square, A, B. These are the four elements. If you simplify these, this is in fact A, this is A Q, this is A B, this is A Q B. So look at these two sets. This was the first set and this was the second set. Look at these two. You have no element common to these two, and also their union is the entire D4. So that's why we are getting an idea that possibly the set of all distinct double cosets is in fact a partition of G as well. So you can find all other cosets as well to see all the possible elements in their double cosets. So this means that any two double cosets are either identical or distinct, because I have completed D4 and also I have seen that there is no intersection between these two. So I can suspect that the other sets, double cosets, may be identical to this and this. So let's see if I find. So for sake of convenience, I want to write them separately. This was H, E, K. This was in fact the subgroup. E, B, A square, B, and then H, A, K. We have seen that the remaining elements. This is A cube, this A, B, and then A cube B. Okay, then find H, A square K. Because you have to vary all the elements of D4 to find all possible double cosets modulo HK in D4 by fixing some elements of D4. Like now we want to see that H A square K. So remember, what is your H? H is in fact E A square. And what is your K? This is E B. Now find H A square K. This is E A square E. This is A square E. Then E A square B. Then A square B. So if you look at this, this is equal to A square. This is E. This one is A square B. This one is A, this one is B. So it's same, like so I can suspect that A square corresponding to A square I have HK, HEK. So that's why corresponding to A square B again I would have the same double coset. So from here I deduce that Okay, I am listing right now HA square K. This is in fact HEK. Then find HAQ K. You will see that this is HAQ. So again, EAQ, then A square AQ E, then EAQB, then A square AQB. Look at this. You have, if you simplify this, we are getting this is equal to AQ, this is A5, this is A, and this one is AQB, this one is AB. Look at this. What is this? This is H. This is H AK. So I have another idea, that is AQK, basically HAK, right? Because HAK has AQ, so double cosets corresponding to AQK is identical to HAK, which is also an element. A is an element of HAK, so it's a common sense, because any two double cosets are identical or disjoint. So since there are identity element from both H and K, that's why the first element will remain same. So that's why I deduced that H this is also equal to H ABK, and this is also equal to H AQBK, right? Similarly, H EK is equal to H BK. This is equal to H A square K, which is equal to H A square BK. Anyhow, we have seen that there are four identical double cosets. So overall there are two disjoint double cosets. One is HEK and the other is HAK. And these two are the possible distinct double cosets, and in fact both are defining a partition of your group G. Okay. Remember, the idea of double coset is also the relation being double coset is also an equivalence relation, and whenever you are defining an equivalence relation on a given set, then that relation always defines a partition of that set. So since double cosets, just like simple cosets, you know that the relation of cosets on a group G always defines a partition of G, because it was an equivalence relation. It was transitive, and it was symmetric, and it was transitive, reflexive as well. Reflexive, symmetric, and transitive. So was an equivalence relation that we have studied in our previous classes in group 3.1. Okay. So similarly, remember that the relation of double cosets on a group G is an equivalence relation. So must defines a partition of G. You see that if it's a group, if it's a G, then there could be possible. Let's say if I have HG1K and HG2K, of course the third one is HEK. These are the three possible cosets. So look, they are defining a partition of G, because all these three double cosets have no intersection to each other, and their union is the entire G. So here in this case, in D4 corresponding to your given H and K, you see that you have only two double cosets. One is HEK and the other is HAK. These are the possible two disjoint double cosets. And remember here HEK intersection HAK is phi, and HEK union HAK is in fact D4. Okay, so that's why we have a very simple and straightforward theorem is that the collection of all double cosets modulo HK, you know where H and K are subgroups of G, always defines a partition of G. Or you can say that if omega is a collection of all double cosets modulo HK, then omega is a partition of G. So let's have this theorem. So theorem, let G be a group and HK be two subgroup of G, define omega is equal to HAK where A belong to G. Here omega, the elements of omega are in fact double cosets. This is some arbitrary double coset HAK. So I want to show that omega is a partition of G. Mean to say that the elements in omega are disjoint, and their union is the entire G, right? So the theorem is very simple. Then omega is a partition of G. Okay, to prove that omega is a partition of G, we need to show two things. One is that any two members of omega are disjoint, and secondly their union is the entire G. So proof. To prove this theorem, we show that number one, HAK intersection HBK is phi. Of course, when A is not equal to B and AB belong to G, this is also obvious. And secondly, you need to show that union of HAK where A belong to G is the entire G, right? You take any two double cosets HAK and HBK and say these two are distinct, however they have some intersection. You know that any two different or distinct double cosets could have some intersection. If I am saying that they are distinct, this never means that they have no intersection. So that's why I will take two distinct or different double cosets with the perception that they have some intersection, and this will contradict your previous supposition that you are taking distinct. That means that you need to show that both are identical. So that's why you would have a contradiction. Okay, so the first condition would be satisfied, and secondly this is about the equality of set. You take an element of G and try to show that this is an element of this set, and conversely the elements of this set are in fact the elements of G. Okay, so let's prove. let HAK and HBK be two distinct uh, double cosets modulo HK, where A is not equal to B and of course A belong to G. Okay, such that HAK intersection HBK is not phi. Okay, try to think about this supposition, what I am saying. We are assuming that these are two different double cosets, however they have some intersection. So by using this condition, I would be able to show that these are not different, these are not distinct. Okay, so this means that this supposition is wrong, because there is no ambiguity, there is no problem, there is no hesitation to take two different double cosets. So that's why taking two different double cosets is not a problem. However, there is no guarantee that whether they have some intersection or not. So if I am getting some contradiction from the idea, this means that I have no problem by assuming two distinct, but I could have a problem from here that they have intersection. So because this is wrong, that's why we will say that HAK intersection HBK is phi. Okay, so let's work on it. If I am saying that they have some intersection, so there must be some element in this intersection. So let X belong to HAK intersection HBK, right? Okay, so HBK HAK. Remember, you should have idea that what we want to do. Of course, our attack is to show that HAK is equal to HBK. If I can show that HAK is equal to HBK, then I would have a contradiction, because I have supposed that HAK and HBK be two distinct double cosets. So taking two distinct double cosets is not a problem. So that's why my target is to show that HAK is equal to HBK. So how can I show this? I can show this simply with the help of equality of sets. Means to say that you take an element from HAK and try to show that this is an element of HBK, and conversely you take an element of HBK and show that it is an element of HAK. So if these two are equal, this means that you have a contradiction, because you have supposed that HAK and HBK be two distinct double cosets, right? So since you are taking such a two distinct double cosets which have some intersection, their intersection is non-empty, so means to say that they have some elements common to HAK and HBK. So that's why let X is such an element. Then this implies X belong to HAK and X belong to HBK. If this is an element of HAK, so this implies that X would be equal to H1AK1 and X would be equal to H2BK2, because if X is from HAK, its form must be H1AK1. If it's from HBK, then its form must be H2BK2. Since both are the values of X, so this implies you can say that H1AK1 is equal to H2BK2, right? Say this is number 1, and from here you can multiply pre and post by applying pre and post multiplication by H1 inverse and K1 inverse. You will get A is equal to H1 inverse H2 B K2 K1 inverse, right? And for sake of convenience, you can suppose that This is some H3 because H1 inverse is an element of capital H, which is a subgroup, and H2 is an element of capital H, which is a subgroup. So this is an element of capital H and this is an element of capital K. So for sake of convenience, you may assume that this is equal to some H3 B K3, where of course H1 inverse H2, which is equal to H3, say, and K2 K1 inverse is equal to K3, say. Okay, because H1 inverse H2 is an element of capital H, so you may suppose that it's H3, and K2 K1 inverse. So you have a relation between A and B now, which is very clear. So what is that relation? So this implies H is equal to H3 B K3. Of course, H3 belong to capital H and K3 belong to capital K. This is your number 2. Okay, now I have a ground to show any arbitrary element of H AK as an element of H BK. So that's why you take an element, because our idea is to show that H AK is equal to H BK. Now take an arbitrary element of H AK and show that it is an element of H BK as well. So let Y belong to H AK, then of course Y is equal to H4 A K4, where H4 belong to capital H and K4 belong to capital K. Now putting the values of A here from 2, what are you getting? Okay, we see that Y is equal to H4, the value of A from here, H3 B K3 K4, using equation 2. So Y is equal to H4 H3 B K3 K4. Now look at this element. Look at this element. This is an element of capital H and this is an element of capital K, and here B is the fixed element. Of course, this is an element, this belongs to H B K. Since Y was an arbitrary element of H A K, and we have shown that this arbitrary element is also is an H B K. So what does it means that this is in fact a subset of this one. Since this implies H A K is a subset of H B K, since Y was arbitrary. Similarly, if you establish a relation, instead of A, you find the value of B from 1 to get a new relation of B in terms of A, and you take an element Z of HBK, and after substituting values of B, you will have an element of HAK. So that's why similarly I can show that HBK is a subset of HAK, and both implies that HAK is equal to HBK, which is a contradiction against the fact that HAK and HBK was distinct. Okay, this is clearly a contradiction, which is a contradiction. Which is a contradiction against the fact that HEK and HBK were distinct for A is not equal to B, hence our second supposition is wrong. Hence our H AK intersection H BK is equal to 5. You can write directly, because this was the second supposition, that HAK intersection HBK is non-empty. So trivially HAK intersection HBK is empty now. Okay, this is our first condition. Now we need to show second condition, that the union of all double cosets is the entire group G. Okay. Secondly, we want to show this G is equal to union of H, A, K, A belong to G. If you can show this, this means that the collection omega of all double cosets is in fact a partition of your group G, right? So for this, again you will use the idea of equality of sets. You take an element from capital G and show that it is an element of this union. So let A belong to capital G, then we see that A is equal to E A E. You can write like this: E from capital H and E from capital K. So this belongs to H A K, of course, which is a subset of union of H A K, where A belongs to G. So look at this: A is an element of this. Since A was an arbitrary element of G, so this means that G is a subset of this. Since A was arbitrary, so we have G is a subset of union of H, A, K, A belong to B. And conversely, this is very easy, that H, A, K, somehow, whatever it is a subset of G. And the union of all subset of G is in G, of course, right? Since say number 1, let H A K belong to H A K, right? So of course this is an element of H A K, where H belong to capital H and K belong to capital K. But H A K clearly H A K belong to capital G. Since H is a subset of G, A is an element of G, and capital K is a subset of G, so because this is an element of G, this implies that H A K is a subset of G. Since H is a subset of G and K is a subset of G, this is trivial. So H A K, since H A K is arbitrary and this is a subset of G, so union of all subsets of the type is also a subset of G. This implies that union of H A K, A belong to G, is a subset of G. Number 2. So by 1 and 2 you have. So by 1 and 2 we have G is equal to union of H A K, A belong to G. Okay, this is our second condition. Second condition is also satisfied. This means that union of all double cosets modulo HK is your group G, and intersection of any two double cosets modulo HK is 5. This means that omega, the collection of all double cosets. Of course, omega is containing all distinct double cosets, because we are leaving identical, we are not considering identical double cosets. So of course, omega is the number of possible distinct double cosets. So if you have a set of all possible distinct double cosets, then that set is in fact a partition of G. Okay, because you have seen that any two double cosets are either identical or disjoint. So, and the other is their union is the entire group G. Hence, just like the previous idea, the set of double cosets is in fact a partition of G. Okay. Now, our second idea is to know can you find the number of elements? Can you find the number of elements in a double coset? In H, A, K. What is the order of H, A, K? What is the order of H, A, K? So this is a natural quest, that can you find the number of elements in a double coset modulo HK, where determined by A belong to G. So for this we have two more theorems. So one theorem is theorem let A, B be finite subgroups of group G that the complex AB contains AB contains exactly Mn by Q elements, where order of A is equal to M, order of B is equal to N, and Q is equal to A intersection B, order of A intersection. Okay, it's a very popular theorem. I think most of the people know. In the Group 3.1 course, we have established already, but now here I am giving another proof, and this can also be established from second fundamental theorem. What was that second fundamental theorem? Was HK over I think this was over B was isomorphic to A over A intersection B, like this. So since both are equal, so order of HK, sorry, this is HK over H, K over H intersection K, right? So order of HK by H is in fact order of K by H intersection K. When you are saying that two groups are isomorphic to each other, so this means that their structure is same and their order is same as well. So that's why order of this group must be equal to order of this group. So this its order is, its order is order of HK over order of H, and this is equal to order of K over order of H intersection K, and you can multiply here. This implies order of HK is equal to order of H into order of K, over order of H intersection K. So if the order of H, instead of H, you can use capital A and capital B. So you would have order of H is equal to M. So this is so simple. This is M N by Q. You know order of H intersection is Q. So its proof is very easy. One idea is to show the second fundamental theorem of homomorphism, and then you use the idea that since these two groups are isomorphic to each other, so because their structure and their order both are same, right? So if you have same order, then easily by definition of the order of a coset, this is in fact the index, and by using the definition of index, this is the order of H k by order of H, order of k by order of H intersection k. You have H k is equal to this, right? The proof is simple. Now I have another idea to prove this theorem, which is the idea of cosets. Okay, so let's have proof again. Okay, the proof is take Q as A intersection B, then clearly then Q is a subgroup of A and Q is a subgroup of B as well. You know that intersection of two subgroup is again a subgroup, and that's why if you are taking Q as A intersection B, then of course Q is a subgroup of A and Q is a subgroup of B as well. Now by using the idea of left cosets of Q in A, you can have A in terms of their union. Okay, so what was that theorem? You can write instead of B, we know that union of I varies from 1 to say R QBI. I assume that let there be all possible right cosets of Q in B. Let there be all possible right, all possible distinct right cosets of Q in B. Okay, if I assume that let there be all possible distinct right cosets of Q in B, then of course their union. This is what is this? This is in fact QBI are the all possible right cosets of Q in capital B, and their union is in fact the entire B. Their union is in fact the entire B. You know that the set of all right or left cosets of H in G is in fact a partition of G, so their union is the entire G. Similarly, since Q is a subgroup in B, so the all possible right, you consider all possible right cosets of Q in B. Suppose these are the all possible distinct right cosets of Q in B, and since you have R possible distinct right cosets of Q in B, so that's why their union is in fact the entire B. Okay, one thing also remember that corresponding to E belong to B, you are getting Q, and other than E, you can never have any coset which is a subgroup, which is serving as a subgroup. Okay, what I am saying? I am saying that I already have discussed the idea. Okay, these are in fact, this is Q, E, Q, B2, say B1 is equal to E. Of course, this is equal to Q, and QB2, QB3, and so on, QBR. Okay, since these all are distinct and different right cosets, so that's why none of these right cosets is a subgroup. This is not a subgroup, this is not a subgroup, this is not a subgroup. That's why this means that B2 does not belong to Q, because if B2 belongs to Q, then it should be Q, and Q is a subgroup. So the only one element which was the identity which is in Q. In fact, B1 is the only element in Q which is the identity. So that's why QE, it means QE. QB1 which is equal to QE which is equal to Q. So E, we are saying B1. B1 is the only element which is an element of Q. So this means that since this is not a group, QB2 is not a group, QB3 is not a group, QBR is not a group, you know that if you find all right cosets, then only one right coset, which is in fact the H itself, with the help of identity, is a subgroup. Because if identity is in H, then identity can never be an element of any other right coset. So that's why there is no other right coset which can serve as the subgroup of G. Okay, so because I am saying that since Q is the only subgroup and these all are the distinct right cosets, so none of the other right cosets is a subgroup. Okay, so that's why this means that if this is not a subgroup, so B2 can never be an element of Q, because if B2 were the element of Q, then QB2 would be Q, right? Okay, because if B2 belong to Q, so this implies B2Q would be equal to Q, and Q is a subgroup. And since QB2 is different from Q, that's why B2 can never be an element of Q. This is what I am saying. Okay, so since this is different from this QE, so that's why B2 is not an element of Q. Similarly, B3 is not an element of Q. Similarly, BR is not an element of Q. This means that QBI, if you are writing QBI, so this means that BI does not belong to Q when I greater than 1. This is what I am saying. Okay, if you take QB2, QB2 is different from Q, so this means that BI does not belong to Q when I greater than 1. This is if you take B1 and B1 is equal to E, identity element, which would be Q. So E is an element of Q. So other than E, all BI are not elements of Q whenever I is greater than 1. So this is very simple to understand the idea. So what I have done two things. One is B is equal to union of Q BI, I varies from 1 to R, and BI does not belong to Q for I greater than 1. And of course take I, where you take B1 is equal to E. If you take B1 is equal to E, then none of the BI belong to Q for I greater than 1. Okay. but then what happens? But then AB would be equal to union of I base from 1 to R A Q B I, right? Now since Q is a subset of A, so AQ, look, if Q is a subset of A, this means that every element of Q is in A. Every element of Q is in A. So that's why AQ is in fact then AQ would be equal to A. Why? Since Q is a subset of A, look at, if you write AQ like this, AX where X belong to Q. Now since X belong to Q and Q is the A intersection P, so because X belong to A, so AX, X belong to A intersection P, and this can represent AX side at X belong to A, and this is equal to, of course, A. If Q is a subset of A, instead of if, you can write since Q is a subset of A, so AQ is equal to A. You can substitute here, then 1 becomes 14 in 1. AB is equal to union of I varies from 1 to R A B I. Note that BI does not belong to Q, so because BI does not belong to A. Remember, BI does not belong to Q for I greater than 1. We have established. This is number 2. Now, BI belong to capital B and BI does not belong to A, since for I greater than 1, since BI does not belong to Q for I greater than 1. This shows that ABI for I is equal to 1, 2, 3 and so on up to R, all are distinct. Now, okay, so can you find that how many elements ABI? ABI, you know that, remember in our previous classes, the order of HA is equal to order of H, in fact. Order of HA, the order of right quotient is in fact the order of H, because this is HE, because we have a theorem. Any two right quotient are left cosets. There is a 1-1 correspondence between any two right cosets of H in G, because there is a 1-1 correspondence between any two right cosets of H in G. That's why their order is same. That's why their order is same. Since HA and HE both are the right cosets, so that's why the order of HA is equal to order of HE, which is equal to order of H as well, right? This means that the order of HA, order of any right coset, is in fact the order of H. Similarly here, the order of ABI, the right coset, the order of this ABI is in fact the order of A. And what is the order of A? This was M. Okay. Moreover, the order of ABI is in fact the order of A, which was what was the order of A? This was M. M was the order of A. Okay, you can write here the logic that any two right cosets are any two right cosets of Q in A are isomer. There is a 1-1. There is a 1-1 correspondence between any two right cosets, right? So ABI, order of ABI is equal to order of A, which is equal to M. But from here, then by 2, order of AB is in fact summation of I will from 1 to R order of ABI, which is equal to summation I will from 1 to R order of A. And what is order of A? You know this I will from 1 to R. This is M, and you know that when you apply summation I will 1 to R on a constant number n, this is in fact MR. This is MR. And what is R? What is R? You know, what was? So order of AB, you have shown that this is equal to MR. And what was R? R was the possible right cosets of Q in B. R was the possible number of right cosets. R was the number of right cosets of Q in B. This was your R. So what is this? This is in fact the index of Q in B. This is equal to index of Q in B, and you know what is index of Q in B? This is in fact order of B over order of Q. And what is this? What is order of B? Order of B was N over Q. So this is equal to Mn by Q. You know, we have supposed that R is the number of right cosets of Q in B, and this was in fact index of Q in B. And index of Q in B, you know, order of B by order of Q, because Q was the subgroup of B. So order of B is N, and order of Q, which was a intersection B, this is equal to Q. So this is Mn by Q. What is N? This is order of A. This was order of B, and then order of A intersection B. Okay, we have established the result again with the help of an alternative approach using the idea of cosets. This is so simple. Firstly, we have taken the right cosets of Q in B. Then by using the idea of a partition of all possible right cosets of Q in B, you can write B in their union. Then you are claiming the idea that QB1, QB2 and so on, QBR, all are different cosets, because BIs are not in Q, due to their distinct cosets. This is in fact B1, which was E, is the only element which is in Q, and all BIs are not in Q. Since all BIs are not in Q, so all BIs are not in A as well. That's why the cosets of A by BIs, cosets of Q in A, all are distinct. So since all are different, distinct, so that's why this union will give you the summation by using the inclusion-exclusion principle, because there is no coset which are disjoint, which are overlapping. They all are distinct. That's why the union is in fact this one by using the inclusion-exclusion principle. Okay, and you know that ABI is equal to order of A. This is a very simple and elementary result. From here you are getting M R. And what is R? R was the number of right cosets of Q in B, which was index of Q in B, which is N by Q. And substituting values here, you are getting order of AB is equal to order of A into order of B over order of A intersection B. It's a simple theorem. Now, by using this theorem, I could have an idea. Look at let G be a group, let G theorem, let G be a group, and HK be subgroup of G, then the order of HK is equal to Mn by Q, where order of H is equal to M, order of K is equal to N, and Q is equal to order of H intersection A, K, A inverse this. Okay, this is in fact the same result. We will use the same result. So what is the difference? There he was using E identity. If you put E, this is the statement of this theorem, that G be a group and HK be subgroup of G, then the order of the double coset modulo HK is in fact Mn by Q, where order of H is equal to M, order of K is equal to N, and Q is order of H intersection aka inverse. So what is happening behind inside? You see that if you write A is equal to E, then what is this? This would be equal to HEK. This is in fact HK. Okay, so here Mn by Q, order of H is equal to M, order of K is equal to N, and order of Q would be equal to H intersection here EK E inverse. This is H intersection K. You are getting the same result. So this is more generalized result, and that was the special case when you are substituting E instead of A. So this is the more general result. Mean to say that whenever you want to find the order, the number of elements in a double coset modulo HK, you have to use this theorem. So order of double coset modulo HK is equal to Mn by Q, where order of H is equal to M, order of K is equal to N. So for finding Q, first you find the conjugate subgroup to K, you have your K, then find AKA inverse, and you will use the element A, that is here A. If you want to find the element of order of HBK, you will use here B, BKB inverse. So this A is the same as you are using for your double coset representation. Modulo HK determined by A belong to G. So what is the idea? You take AKA inverse, find the conjugate subgroup to your given group K, and then find H intersection AK inverse, then find its order. This is Q. Okay, let's work with the previous example as we have discussed and have evaluated some double cosets. So okay, we'll see the elements. Okay, you see H was your E A square, and K was your EB. So what was HAK? This was in fact A and AQ, AB and AQB. Okay, you have established HAK. There are the 4 elements. So what you have to do, first find AKA inverse. This one. First we need to find AKA inverse. So what is your K? This is AEA inverse, ABA inverse. So what is this? This one is E and this one is AB. What is A inverse? You know A4 is equal to E. So A inverse is equal to AQ. This is AQ. So what is AB? AB is you can find here, you know, AB is equal to AB inverse, because you know AB square is equal to E. In D4, AB square is equal to E. So that's why AB is equal to AB inverse. This is B inverse, A inverse, and you know B square is equal to E, so B inverse is equal to B, and this is equal to AQ. So BAQ, AB is equal to BAQ. Right here. So this is equal to E, AB. Get right here. So this is equal to E. What is AB? AB is equal to BAQ. This is BAQ, AQ. What is this? So A cube, A cube, this is A6, A4 is the identity, so BA square, EBA square. So EBA square. What is this? Hence, so AKA inverse is equal to EBA square, EBA square, and you know BA square is equal to A square B. So EA square B. Now H intersection AKA inverse. Look at this. This is EA square B, and what is H? EA square. So you have just one element common to these two, that is E. So this is E. Now you can find the order of HAK. So order of HK is order of HAK is equal to order of H, order of K over order of H intersection AKA inverse. You know this is E, so order of H is equal to 2. This is 2, this is 1, 4. Look at here. So this double coset modulo HK determined by A belong to G has 4 elements, right? So look at here, HAK has 4 elements. So in this way, using this theorem, you would be able to know the number of elements in a double coset modulo HK, right? Okay. So now we can prove this theorem. The proof of this theorem is so easy. We can use the last theorem and would be able to give its proof easily. Proof. Right. Since H and K are finite subgroups of G, so the double coset HAK consists of only a finite number of elements only a finite number of elements in G, let these be x1, x2, so on, xr. Okay, this is so simple. Since H and K are finite subgroups of a group G, so because the double cosets H, A, K must be finite, that x1, x2, xr are the only possible elements in your double coset H, A, K modulo HK determined by A belong to G, right? So then you know that so HAK union of xi, I will from 1 to R. So this implies HAK A inverse is equal to union of xi A inverse, I will from 1 to R. Okay, we claim that xi A inverse all are distinct elements. If not, then xi A inverse must be equal to some xj inverse for I is not equal to j. But by the cancellation of A inverse on the right side, we will get xi is equal to xj, which is a contradiction for I is not equal to j. We claim that note that the elements xi A inverse for I is equal to 1, 2 up to so on are distinct. For otherwise, let xi A inverse is equal to xj A inverse for I is not equal to j. This implies x is I is equal to xj for I is not equal to j, a contradiction. Okay, we claim that the elements xi A inverse are distinct. Okay, if they are not, then xi A inverse is equal to xj inverse for I is not equal to j. Then by cancellation A inverse on the right side, post multiplication by A on to this equation, we are getting xi is equal to xj for I is not equal to. But you have assumed that xi 1 to 3 up to R were the distinct elements in double coset HAK modulo HK determined by A. Okay, that's why. Yes, these are the different distinct elements. Okay. Now look at here, what is this? If you take this as K, put K dash is equal to AK A inverse, then one gives HK dash is equal to union of xi A inverse, I will from 1 to R. So this implies HK dash order of HAK dash is equal to, you know, these are the R elements. So order of all these. Then what are the elements of HAK dash? By last result, you can write this is order of H. This implies order of HK dash, order of H into order of K move order of H intersection K dash by last result. Okay, in the last result you have shown that HK dash, because the elements are different, so that's why HK dash, the order of HK dash is equal to order of H into order of K dash, order of K dash is over H intersection K dash. Now back substitute the values in this equation. You are getting putting the values here, which is equal to order of H order of H, which is order of A inverse over order of H intersection A inverse. Now look at here. If this is the conjugate subgroup, this group is since A inverse is isomorphic to K, so because A inverse order of A is order of K, so there is no problem. Okay, the order of AK inverse is in fact order of K because AK inverse is conjugate to K. Okay, so that's why you can write like this: order of H into order of K over order of H intersection AK inverse, since you are given that order of AK inverse is equal to order of K. Now you are given order of H is equal to M, this is equal to M, this is equal to N, and order of this is equal to Q. So this is Mn by Q. Mn by Q. This is order of H, A, K. Right? Okay, you have another theorem similar to this. The last theorem of this lecture is let a group G of order have subgroups HK of order Lm and respectively. Let G be a group and HK subgroup of G with order of H is equal to L and order of K is equal to M. If Qi is equal to order of Qi, which is equal to Q H intersection AI K AI inverse for I is equal to 1 to up to so on R, then order of G is equal to Lm by Q1 plus Lm by Q2 plus so on Lm by Qr. Look at here, order of G is equal to N. You take, let G be a group, let G be a finite group, G be a finite group. Assume you can take order of G is equal to n, say, now if H, order of H is L, order of K is M, and order of G is N, then this N can be written as Ln by Q1, where Q1 is in fact H intersection A1K A1 inverse, and Q2 is in fact H intersection A2K A2 inverse, and so forth. Okay, so you can establish the result. N is equal to Ln by Q1 plus Ln by Q2 and so on, Ln by QR, right? Now we prove this theorem. Proof. We know that G is equal to union of H, A, K and A belong to G. This is very simple, and we have proved this result, that if omega is the collection of all double cosets modulo HK, then their union is in fact then omega, the collection of all double cosets is in fact the partition of G. If it is a partition of G, then their union is the entire G. Okay, so here H, A, K, you know, H, A, K intersection H, B, K are disjoint, right? Okay, so order of G, this implies order of G is in fact summation of H, A, K, A, I, I will from 1 to R. Order of this, assume there be are possible distinct double cosets modulo HK. Okay. Assume that there be possible distinct, are possible distinct double cosets modulo HK, or you can say that this is equal to union of H of A, I, K, I will from 1 to R. Okay. And assume you may assume, let there be are possible distinct double cosets of modulo HK, then we know that G is the union of this, then by since HIK intersection AJK, from here for here you can write, since HAIK intersection AJK is phi for all I is not equal to J, that's why. So this is equal to N is equal to HA1K plus HA2K plus so on plus HARK. And in the last theorem we have established what is the order of this. Its order is order of H, order of K by order of H intersection A1 K A1 inverse, this plus its order is order of H into order of K over order of H intersection A2K A2 inverse, plus so on, and lastly order of H into order of K over order of H intersection AR K AR inverse. And what is this? This is so simple. What is the order of H? So N is equal to Lm by Q1 plus Lm by Q2 plus 1 plus ln by qr, where of course qi is equal to order of gauge intersection aik, ai inverse I will from 1 to r, and this further can be expressed n is equal to summation lm 1 over q I will from 1 to r. Okay, this is another result we are going to use in the proofs of Silo third and Silo second theorem, and also we are going to use in some consequences of Silo theorems. So try to revise the idea of cosets and then try to understand the idea of double cosets modulo hk that I have discussed in detail with the help of examples. In the next class, inshallah, we are going to discuss the proof of Silo second theorem and Silo third theorem. Okay, thank you very much. Allah Hafiz.